A phrase that you hear bandied about quite a bit is the phrase duty of care, the employer's duty of care. I meet many employees who talk about the employer's duty of care, but they fail to understand what exactly is involved in the legal duty of care from the employer, or to what extent or how wide is that duty of care. What is the standard? How does the employer discharge the duty of care? That's what I'm going to take a look at in this video. So we all understand the phrase duty of care. It's a phrase that's bandied about quite a lot. It's well settled law that an employer owes a duty of care to the employee. There's no question about that. However, what extent is it? Well, the courts have not laid down one single duty of care, but they have recognised that it will vary depending on the circumstances, and it will vary depending on the employee's age, experience, knowledge, what type of a job it is, what risk there is, and so on. And it is critical to succeed in a negligence claim, for example, a personal injury claim, for example, against the employer, to show that the employer has failed to discharge his duty of care. To put it very, very simply, an employer will have discharged his duty of care if he does what a reasonable and prudent employer would do in the circumstances. So, provided that he's not reckless or negligent, provided he does what a reasonable or prudent employer might do, almost certainly he will have discharged his duty of care. Now, to dig a little bit deeper and to get a little bit more granular in relation to the duty of care owed by the employer, the scope would generally be assessed under 4 headings, and they will be the provision of competent staff, the provision of a safe place of work, the provision of proper equipment, and the provision of a safe system of work. So once the employer has done these things, that from a legal perspective will probably see the employer discharging his duty of care. In other words, the standard of care is whatever a reasonable and prudent employer might do in the circumstances. To take that a little bit further, if you were, for example, out sick for quite a while, and if you felt that the employer was simply letting you dangle, as it were, and not showing any concern for you, and not asking you how you are, and so on and so forth, that specifically, or that type of thing, would not necessarily show that the employer had failed in his legal duty of care. You might be disappointed, you might be miffed, and it may not be good practice, but from the point of view of discharging or failing to discharge the duty of care, the employer would not be in breach, in my view, for failing to check on you or see how you were or when you might be likely to come back to work. So the duty of care is a specific standard that an employer owes to an employee, provided the employer acts reasonably and acts like a prudent employer in the circumstances. Then it's likely that the employer will have succeeded in discharging his duty of care. Hope you find this video useful. If nothing else, it might just indicate the difference between the legal standard for the duty of care and what people might, in the ordinary course of conversation and in the ordinary meaning of language, describe as a duty of care, and say, oh, he's an appalling employer, he's not discharging his duty of care towards me just because he doesn't ring up and see how I am, or when I might be back to work, or send me get well wishes. That's really nothing got to do with it, insofar as the duty of care is a legal standard, and that's where it arises in the question of a personal injury claim, it arises in the question of a negligence claim in relation to breach of contract, and so on. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, you might give it a thumbs up down below, and you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel, I attempt to explain in plain language various aspects of Irish law and Irish business. Thanks for watching.